Alvin Kamara, he was just dealing with injuries at the end of the season as well, but the pass catching is still there. He was the offense outside of Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints. So I think that these running backs are going to get discounted. And the reason why I put them up in my rankings is because I anticipate that they're going to be lower based on the expert consensus on Fantasy Pros. I'm 3 spots ahead on Kamara. And I think it's egregious. Like, we're going to see Alvin Kamara still be useful in this offense. So I think that the fear that they're falling off is preserved by their pass catching. So I want them as top 15 running backs this year in 2024.
Yeah, so I'm going to start by disagreeing with you, and let's go point by point and person by person. I'm going to start with Alvin Kamara. We take a look at how that running game and how that offensive kind of worked and when they found their most success. You look at the emergence of Keandre Miller coming on last week of the year, who was also dealing with injuries all year, who I think is going to partially eat up some of Alvin Kamara's touches in carries and be that change of pace back that the Saints are looking for. You got a guy who's a lot younger than Alvin Kamara, who has a quicker burst and a little bit more speed than Kamara does at this point of his career, and has taken a lot less hits than Alvin Kamara has. So I think Keandre Miller is going to eat into the touches of Alvin Kamara, knocking him down a little bit. So I think running back 11 and being an RB1 is a little bit high for him. I see him as a mid-tier RB2, probably around that 18 to 20 range going into next year. So I don't think you're a million miles apart in terms of against consensus, but I don't think he has that running back 1 upside, especially with Jamal Williams still there, especially with Keandre Miller coming on strong towards the end and having a great week 17 and 18. Then
yeah, so the Alvin Kamara, I agree with you. I love Keandre Miller. I think he's definitely a sneaky play that we want to be in on, because I think both you and I aren't really impressed with Jamal Williams, right? I think he's going to have his role as like a plotter.
If he's outside the 1, he's not scoring. That's pretty much it.
And so I agree with you. I think Keandre Miller is one of those players that I will love clicking later in the rounds, because I still think that Alvin Kamara is going to be the lead back. I think you would agree too that he's probably still going to be the lead back. But Keandre, even if he's more involved, we saw early in Kamara's career 120 rush attempts. Kamara still finishes as the running back 4 in fantasy points per game. Jake, do you know what Alvin Kamara finished as the running back points per game finisher this year?
Off the top of my head, no. I would have to look it up.
He finished as running back 3 in fantasy points per game. So for him to fall to 11, I think that's a fair drop for because he was running back 13 2 years ago. So I think falling a little bit is fine. And I do agree with you. He's on the wrong side of the age curve, and Keandre Miller is definitely a great pickup. So I think that we're in agreement on Keandre Miller, maybe just a little bit of haggling over the spot for where Alvin Kamara is. But see, I was thinking it's actually Alvin Kamara who would go to Denver with the Sean Payton ties. And you could see Alvin Kamara have a career renaissance under head coach Sean Payton. That's very much a possibility.
If that's the case, I think you might be a little bit closer to in terms of where you have Kamara ranked if he does find his way over to Denver, but we'll have to see what happens there.
Compare that to, like, we were talking Denver Broncos. They were at 72.3. That was 4th best in the NFL. So moving on is probably in Austin Eckler's best interest if the Chargers don't address the offensive line. And the Chargers may look at this and say, you know what? The issue may not be with our offensive line. The issue may be with Austin Eckler, who, like, in game film, just looks slow. He was moving a lot slower. There was the one game where it looked like he was moving like 13 miles an hour, just really slow along the sideline. And that was, I think, the pivot point for many of us changing our minds on Austin Eckler.